Welcome to episode 14 of the BlokeBusters podcast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Paul.
And today's date is March 13, 2013. And last month's Academy Awards, now slash Oscars.
Now the Oscars, yes.
Got us thinking, and took us a little longer to get to this, but we're going to be discussing our Best Picture winners all time, respectively. Paul and I have each picked out a film, and we may dabble into a few others here and there, but focusing mainly on two films here. So I'll, at this point, toss it up to Paul and let him take the lead.
Okay, well, my film is a fairly recent one. It's 2008's winner. Obviously the Oscars were shown in 2009, but it's the winner from 2008, Slumdog Millionaire. It was a close call between this and Silence of the Lambs, but I'll get to why in the end. So, just going into, as I always do, the nitty-gritty, directed by Danny Boyle of 28 Days Later fame, 127 Hours. Train Spotting, I think, would probably be the big one from him. The budget for it was reported as $15 million US. I didn't bother going into the UK one for that. And as of October 2009, the box office was $377,910,544.
All right, then.
Not too shabby, I think you'll agree.
Not that that's important.
Yes. But given the fact that there's, at least in England and the US, not a single big name connected to it, I would say that's quite a good go. And the main character, Jamal Malik, is played by Deb Patel. And the other main character, even though she's not in it for all the film and is kind of in and out, and I should say Deb Patel plays the most grown-up version. There are other characters, other actors that played the role, and I'll get to why I haven't written those names down in a second. The other adult one is Frida Pinto, playing Latika, at least the older Latika. And I will say that the reason that I don't have any other names written down is because I will butcher them, and I'm not willing to sit here and just mess up everyone's name, and I'm sure that we'll get at least one letter saying that I messed it up, and no, can't deal with that. And so yes, this won the Best Picture for the 2008 Oscars. It also won Best Director, Best Adapted Screenplay, Cinematography, Original Score, Film Editing, and Sound Mixing. So, yeah, did very well at that Oscars. Won 8 out of the 10 it was nominated for. And at a very brief synopsis, as I'm sure most of the people that would listen to this have already seen it, it's a film about this guy who ends up being on the Mumbai version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, going for the 20 million rupee question.
I'm guessing that's a lot. I don't know.
I'd imagine it's
about
roughly
$1 million.
Equivalent to $1 million.
I don't know what the translate, what the exchange rate was.
To be honest, I should have looked that one up, but I didn't.
Who wants to be a 900,000-aire? Just doesn't have the same ring to it.
I know. If you listen to the host of the show, you might think it's the equivalent of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Millionaire, yes, which did annoy the hell out of me. The first time, and the last time, and all the times in between. Millionaire.
Because I was thinking about that. Isn't that someone that does like stonework or something? It's not someone that has a lot of money.
Yeah.
But whatever. So he's on that specifically to try and get back in touch with Latika, and through a series of flashbacks, all told because they think he's cheating because he's doing very well, you see exactly how he knows the answers, and also you get to see his life and the entire reason that he is on the show in the first place. And I would say, before I go any further, it deserved the Best Film award. There are some in the past that I would say didn't compared to the other films that come up, but we'll get to that. And I can understand why it won all of the other Oscars, because it was a fantastic looking film, so cinematography there, and the editing, I thought, could not fault the editing in the film. And the director, I don't know, I tried to look up all the stuff he's done.
Oh, yeah. Boyle.
Yeah, and I don't think that many of his other works have done that well according to the Academy. And I think that this time, if this was his first Best Directing Oscar, which shame on me for not checking that, but that was, then yeah, he definitely earned that one. And the reason that I went with this one, as opposed to, say, Silence of the Lambs or maybe even Schindler's List, was that sitting down to watch this film, I'd heard good things about it. My mother actually told me that if I went to see it and didn't like it, she herself would give me the money for the film ticket.
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, so, and it's one of those things of, okay, I'm either going to go and see a film and like it, or I'm going to go see a film, no skin off my nose, I'll get the money back for it. My wife didn't necessarily enjoy the film as much as I did, and that should read as she doesn't like the film.
Uh-huh. Yeah?
Yeah, she doesn't understand why I like the film as much as I do, but...
I was a little, I would admit it, perplexed when you sent me the text of the films you wanted to cover, and I'm like,
But sitting down and watching the film, it's one of the films that I was genuinely rooting for some of the characters in it. Because when it came down to it, it was this guy that wanted to see this girl again, and even though I typically don't care about any of that stuff, I was genuinely... Yeah, I know. I'm a cold-hearted bastard. But this film, I was so into seeing this guy's life and seeing everything that had happened to him and everyone that he'd cared about, that by the end I was genuinely just like, I'll give this guy a happy ending. Please give this guy a happy ending. And spoiler, if you haven't seen the film, he does, because he gets to be with the girl that he loves, and they get to do a dance number at the train station. And I was interested in all of the characters, because I thought all of the characters were fairly fleshed out. I mean, there's the brother who sort of had to go down the route he did to protect his brother, and, you know, maybe he liked it, and then you see him have the real remorse at the end. You've got the girl who ended up going down the route she did, firstly because of the brother, and then also kind of because of the brother, but because she wanted to protect the main character, and the only way to do that was to shut him out. And then you've just got all these other people. The host is, apart from not being able to say the word millionaire, is a complete dick.
Yeah.
I think he says he's the only other person to have won the show, to have won that much money, and you can tell he doesn't want anyone else to win that money. And slight side note, actually, they wanted to get the actual host of their version of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire on it, but he said he couldn't because of how that character was portrayed. He didn't want people to associate him with that.
Didn't think he was actually a dick.
Yeah, didn't want to think that he was that bad at the show was rigged. Because, you know, that is the insinuation.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And I just, the whole experience of seeing it, I came out just being like, wow, I really like that film. It was not on the same line as Lincoln, say, but along those lines of you come out like, that was a good film. That was just really good. And I mean, maybe it's because I didn't see Silence of the Lambs in the theatre. Maybe if I'd seen that in the theatre, I'd have had that much more impact on me. But probably again Schindler's List. I saw it on a smaller television. Yeah, didn't diminish the film. That's my thing, but maybe it diminished my.
Well, that's just what it's hard to get people. You know, it's not a lot of rewatch on Schindler's List. Like, hey, everybody, let's come over and get depressed for 3 hours.
Let's come over and watch some. Some of I should say the worst racism that has occurred.
Yeah, and I prefer my Liam Neeson to kick ass in other ways. Terrorist ass.
Rather than behind the scenes kicking ass.
Yeah.
More the upfront.
Yeah, saving my daughter kind of ass kicking.
Yes, and quick note, have you seen Taken 2?
I have not seen Taken 2, nor I probably will not see Taken 2.
Yeah, and unfortunately I've heard it doesn't quite live up to... the original.
It should have been Taken 2, subtitle Too Much Taken. Just the TOO.
Or even just Taken 2 and then brackets much.
Again. Just subtitle. Again. Seriously? Really? Yeah. Question mark. Seriously? Yes. It doesn't fit on a poster all, it kind of rolls along the side, but...
Taken 3, you must be joking.
These are the worst parents ever.
This time it's him.
Worse than the Home Alone 3 parents. And the Home Alone 4, like, seriously? Yeah.
What's in any Home Alone? Really? Like,
That needs to be taken 3. Macaulay Culkin gets taken. They're like, no one wants to pay the ransom for Macaulay Culkin.
They actually go to Liam Neeson and get him to do it.
Yeah.
So talk down the phone, just like, I'll let him go.
And you got Liam Neeson do the ah as he puts on some aftershave. That'd be great. Call us, Hollywood. We're available.
I will just say, like, going into Home Alone 1 very briefly, how do you only do...
Please, no.
How do you only do the one head count as you're leaving, and that's it? How do you not do another one, like, at the gate, on the plane? Surely they must have realized they had a ticket spare. Whatever.
It's a premise, okay? Yeah, whatever. A weak one. But
I know.
Okay.
They had to get some kid home.
All right. Back to...
Yes, back to
Slum Millionaire. Millionaire Slums. Yeah, this was one that was playing at the theater when I worked there, and so we'd screen them typically at midnight for the employees if you wanted to stay, you know. And so that was one I was like, oh, I was definitely interested in seeing it. And I will say it was over. I really enjoyed watching it, and at the end I'm like, that was a very good movie. And I have not seen it since. I was like, oh, I'll buy that when it comes out. And I just picked it up a few times that week it came out on DVD and didn't pull the trigger on it. Still have it. And I don't know, you can't win with me because it was tied up a little too neatly for me. But then I'll get pissed when things aren't tied up neatly for me. I was like, oh, it's a little too storybook. Perfect ending. But
maybe you'd have been happy if they'd have ended it with her saying she's safe, but then they don't necessarily meet up at the end.
Like, are you a Great Expectations fan? Do you know, where they agree to be friends? Stella and Pip agree to be friends, kind of, but there will be no love thing because she's too broken and she, blah, blah, blah. But it's heartbreaking. And there are 2 endings of that novel, but that's the one that's most widely regarded.
That could be the thing then, because she says that she's safe, that she got out, but there's absolutely no guarantee after he wins the money that he's ever going to see her again. They just then had the point where they meet again in the train station.
Yeah, but you're supposed to think marriage, kids, blah, blah. Come on, that's what you're supposed to think.
I know that it's going down that way with that scene. But then
again, I like my ambiguous endings, and sometimes I hate them. Yeah. But I think it worked well. I think that's the way you had to pay off that movie.
Yeah. With how hard that kid worked to getting her back.
So it's an unfair criticism, I'll admit. Yeah. But I think it was a very good movie. Do you recall me saying the other nominees from that year? I don't know. Did you write down any?
I recall you saying them. That doesn't mean I recall what they were.
You don't recall what they were.
Yeah, I think if I had heard one that I'd seen and liked, then I probably would have written it down. But I think all of the other ones were ones that I didn't either get around to watching or didn't feel that much.
The Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Yeah, that one
would probably have been, since you haven't seen it, that would have been probably my vote that year, who I wanted to win. Not that, and I would say Slumdog was probably my number 2.
Right. It would have been
that one didn't win. I was like, oh, okay. And The Reader was kind of an independent type feel, and that didn't have a whole lot of chance. That their win was the nomination.
Yeah.
Much like Frost Nixon and Milk, both kind of not a large number of screens, I believe, on both of those films, but still really, really good.
I've seen the first half of Frost Nixon.
You've seen Frost, but not Nixon.
Yes. I need to.
You didn't get to the slash.
I hit the slash, and it was just a wall.
I can't watch the second act. Okay.
I think it was the thing of I watched it and then I had to do something and then I just never picked it up again.
Yeah.
Which I've done too many times. I need to finish that one. Right?
All right. Well, did you have anything to add in on that?
I mean, apart from my hearty recommendation of anyone that hasn't seen this to watch the film, at least. Even going down your route, at least just the once.
Exactly.
So seen it, so
I'm not opposed to seeing it again. If it's, I think it's been on TV even once or twice, maybe, and I've watched bits of it, but just not all the way through again. And I will say part of that is for Frida Pinto.
Right.
I would get on TV to try to get in contact with Frida Pinto.
Okay. All right.
I'm crazy, Zoe. Don't be hurt. Don't be jealous. Okay.
Yeah, this is all his. If I can't have my first choice, I just have to fall back on something.
Yes, I suppose that the beautiful Frida Pinto will do. Okay, back to reality, maybe.
Oh, do we have to?
Oh, yes, I know, it's not as fun. I guess, I don't know, did you want to rate, or did you want to maybe do that later, sir?
Well, I don't really have a rating in mind, but I would probably go along with, for myself, something along the lines of, say, minus 0.5, like that. I think it is just because of how much I enjoyed the film, although... You look at the Oscar list, he did well enough to deserve that, I think. And
I'd be at about a minus 3.5 or so.
Yeah,
or so 3.5.
I can see it.
Still recommended. But not Citizen Kane, even though they did not win the Best Picture.
Yes, lost to How Green Was My Valley. I mean, come on.
We all love that. Come on. I'm sure I would if I'd ever seen it.
Yeah.
All right, maybe someday. All right, so I'm going to go in the Wayback Machine just a little bit. Not too far. I'm not pulling anything from the 30s or the 40s here.
We should at some point. Our best pick from the 30s.
Yes, She Done Him Wrong with Mae West. I don't know. I think that got nominated but did not win. Good movie, though. Good movie. Good pull by me. Okay. Anyway, I am going to go with the great underdog story in a couple of ways. 1976 motion picture called Rocky.
Yes,
Rocky Balboa. Well, that was a later movie.
Yes,
but also very good.
I will take
premiered on December 3rd. I will go through the bits and pieces a little bit for you. It's had a budget of $1.1 million. The .1 came from Chartoff and Winkler, the producers who agreed with United Artists if they went over budget, they would have to compensate.
Right.
So their $100,000 came from them.
Nice. Very nice.
And the gross, not bad on the return, $117.2 million. So, after investing 1.1. That's the U.S.
Do you think those two got their 100,000 back then?
Probably. And then the worldwide is $225 million. Yeah, so not too shabby there.
No.
As directed by John G. Avildsen. To this point, he had never directed a sports movie or directed or anything. He had not even been to a fight, apparently, and had never even seen a boxing film before. And so this was his first exposure. And it was written by Sylvester Stallone.
I knew that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was one of hundreds of scripts he had written at that point. He was an unknown. He had been in, I can't think of the movie right now, but he'd been in something like the year before, or a small part, and that was kind of what helped him get the job.
Right.
Actually, accidentally, because they screened this to the head of United Artists, and it's like, oh, which one's Stallone? And they mistakenly pointed out the wrong guy. And it's, oh, I like that guy. Oh, yeah, he's all right. And hired him. And you're like, okay, yeah, Stallone can do it. And then he was not amused at all when he found out who Sylvester Stallone really was. It's like, because it was this blonde hair guy. It's like, how is he Italian? And I was like, oh, I guess he's Northern Italian or something. Yeah. Or something, because they're blonde hair, blue eyes, whatever. But yeah, so anyway, Sylvester Stallone wanted to sell the script, but only if he could star as Rocky. And that was his demand. And he had $106 in the bank. And was trying to sell his dog, who plays Butkus in the movie, because he couldn't afford to feed him anymore.
Right.
And he could have sold it, and someone else starred in it, whatever. He said, no, I'm going to star in this.
Right.
And, whatever. So I do admire that integrity.
Yeah.
And just, you know what? Like, yeah, I have no money, but
one hell of
I'm a creative person, and this is what I want to do. So before he started making terrible movies in the late 80s, he did have some integrity. I just want to point that out for the Sly haters out there, because I know they're out there. Peanut Gallery.
I know you don't like him either. Yeah.
I wasn't asking to hear from the Sly haters just a second.
Yeah.
But
I will actually say I am one of those.
Oh, fair enough. But you cannot deny Rocky.
No,
okay.
yes, I definitely can't.
And all right then. But it was just this great mirroring situation of Rocky being the underdog, Sylvester Stallone being the underdog.
Yeah.
No one knew him. And the film being an underdog, no one knew of it. It was expected, once it did finally get made, it was expected to do nothing. Like, okay, we got the movie made.
Right.
And it just
Possibly
started to
get
the ball rolling. Kind of like Clerks a little
Right.
bit. Not that won any big awards, but, popularity-wise. And then it just started to pick little small awards. And there's a great documentary on the Blu-ray collection that came out a few years ago. And they just started to get noticed. And this movie's amazing. So eventually, Long goes on to win Best Picture up against All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, and Taxi Driver, which is one of my all-time favorite films as well.
Yeah, Taxi Driver, fantastic film.
Yeah, and so, beat out that. But it's just, for me, it's just that classic story of a nobody that wants to be a somebody.
Yeah.
That it's just, not that he's completely unhappy, but when you meet him, he's very accepting of his lifestyle. His only companions are his 2 turtles, Cuff and Link, his goldfish, Moby Dick, and that's it, until Adrian gives him a butt kiss. He's just a quiet existence, and he says he's a bum, his trainer Mickey calls him a bum, you're a bum all the time, but he was a boxer kind of when you meet him, and he's still doing these nickel and dime fights.
Right.
And is just making very little money doing it. And his main job is working as a collector for a loan shark, so. Right. And even as Mickey, played wonderfully by Burgess Meredith, points out that you could have been great, but just kind of implying that he didn't give it his everything.
Yeah.
And really enjoyed that aspect of it. I just want to go back to the cast real quick. You had Talia Shire, sorry, just jumping around here, as Adrian. And Burt Young as Paulie, Adrian's brother. Apollo Creed, played by Carl Weathers. A lot of people know who Carl Weathers is. Well-known actor now, but not a whole lot then. And then Mickey is Burgess Meredith, the main guys in there.
Good old Burgess.
Burgess, yeah. I just love Mickey all through the whole series of films. But briefly, if you have not seen Rocky, if you've not had the last 30 years to view the film, granted, you may not be 30, but whatever. It's America's bicentennial. Apollo Creed is this Muhammad Ali type fighter, just destroys people, very charismatic. His prowess in the ring only matched by his business savvy and the way to market himself. And he's just an incredible marketer and promoter of himself. And he's scheduled to fight this guy that has to drop out due to a broken hand. And he was a worthy kind of competitor.
Right.
Not expected to lose, but worthy of fighting Apollo.
Yeah.
And so they have to scramble and we need a catch, or we need a gimmick now. And so Apollo comes up with the idea, we'll offer this to a nobody, an unknown, to fight the great Apollo Creed, or to box him, And so it's perfect. It's America's bicentennial. It's perfectly American, give this... in the land of opportunity. Give someone a shot at winning the title, the world boxing title. And they even say it's very American, and Apollo says it's very smart. So that's the whole premise. And so Rocky reluctantly agrees. He's like, oh no, I'm just a nobody. You don't want to see that. It'll be embarrassing, and I'm going to get my head caved in pretty much in a second. And I don't want to fight the great Apollo, but he gets talked into it by Apollo's people. Meanwhile, you have him courting the very modest Adrian, who wears the glasses and just short hair and keeps her head down and doesn't say 10 words in the pet store, and just Rocky sees something in her. And they're just both kind of nobodies. Like, her brother Paulie calls her a loser all the time, and very abusive to her. And so they kind of find each other that way. He comes in and tells her bad jokes in the pet store all the time. And it's just a really nice story. I know you don't care about those things, you said. But for those that do, I'm sure there are a few out there as well, other than me, that really like to see those characters or those emotions kind of work well together. And just one of the most iconic scenes is when they go on their first date ice skating. She ice skates, he jogs beside her, and they kind of talk, and she says, I was told, I didn't have much of a body, so I better use my brain. And, Rocky first says, I didn't have much of a brain, so I had to use my body. That's, what his dad told him or whatever. Yeah. And she says, that's funny, I was told the opposite, But it's one of the most... Yeah, exactly, one whole person. But it's one of the most iconic scenes, I think, in the Rocky collection. And it's just didn't go as Stallone had planned. There's supposed to be tons of extras in that scene, and there's like one person there. And so it's filmed as that it's shut down, and it's much more intimate, actually. Right. But it just plays really, really well. And Rocky really allows Adrian to come out of her shell. He's the one that's able to open her up into the world. Yeah. And if you watch the other movies, you really see how far she comes. And kind of gets to be a little annoying later. But I love her in this movie. Before she's all obsessed about fur coats and all that crap.
An annoying character in a Stallone film?
Shut it. That's not Stallone, you should have said?
Yes. I thought I'd leave that there.
Okay. But, I just... So what else did I want to go into? But
Shuffle.
shuffle. But yeah, you have another great scene where Mickey visits Rocky, where before this fight came about, telling him that he's a bum, a nobody, that I've given your locker away to someone else.
Yeah.
You're on Skid Row, blah blah blah. And then Mickey comes, hat in hand, metaphorically. Oh, can I be your manager, pretty please? Kind of, and in a long-winded way of talking about his fighting days. And Rocky's not having it, just just very short and agreeable. And just a great scene where Stallone actually improvised this monologue where he just kind of screams at Mickey until Mickey gets the point and starts walking away. It stinks. This place stinks. His apartment's tiny. It's just one room. This whole place stinks. I'm a nobody. You said and just kind of lets him have it. And then Rocky's good heart and good nature, he runs after him, and you don't see any dialogue, or hear any dialogue, but it's just them in the distance talking, and puts his hand around Mickey, and you get the impression, okay, he's on board, Mickey's back. So that's one of the great scenes. And then, of course, you go into the typical Rocky movie, which would become typical. Training montage. The iconic Philadelphia Art Museum stairs running where you can't do it the first time, got the stitch in the side, and then at the next training montage, he runs up it quickly and dances around, jumps, throws his hands up in the air. Perfect. And and lastly, before we get to the big fight, the great scene that Stallone really, really fought for, and they were only able to do one take. Everyone else said you don't need it in the movie. So when he comes back late at night, right before the fight, he's been in the ring, and Adrian's in his bed, and he sits on there, and he says, I can't do it. I can't win. And says there's no way I can beat him. He's just being very realistic. And Adrian's like, oh, okay, so what are we going to do? And just very supportive, and he realizes he doesn't want to win. Or not that he wouldn't like to win, but it's if I can just go the distance, and that's 15 rounds, then I think they do. I don't know what they do now. It's less than that. But he said, if I can go to the distance, no one's ever gone the distance with Apollo. And if I'm still standing after that bell rings, it's I'll feel like he said, I think the line is, I weren't just some bum from this neighborhood.
Right.
I'll have achieved something. And so that does kind of set it up. A spoiler, obviously, if you haven't seen it. But it just turns into this great fight that everyone thinks he's going to get knocked out by the third round easily.
Yeah.
And he actually knocks Apollo down, which Apollo had never been knocked down in this fictional world, of course, by anyone. And just really stuns everyone. And it goes the distance, of course.
Yeah.
And then Apollo retains the title. By split decision.
One of those technicalities.
Technicalities. And Rocky could care less. The music's blaring at Bill Conti's wonderful scores, blaring at the end, and he's just yelling for Adrian. His face is just a giant purple swelling mess, and he just wants Adrian in the ring, and he's like, I love you, blah blah blah. Good stuff for Paul. And credits. That was actually a pretty daring thing for a script to do, is not have your hero win.
Right.
In that, and especially in a sports genre, which I'm not a huge fan of, by the way.
No, I'm typically.
But I'm more in for it. I don't think that this as a sports film. It's a kind of a romance with a sport background to it, or it's this story of the nobody into a somebody through the vehicle of sports.
Right.
But I don't think of it as just because there's only about 15 or 20 minutes of boxing in there.
Yeah.
Even though, there's some training stuff, whatever. But, mostly it is just a very quiet, dialogue-driven film. Yeah. And which is a lot of people's complaint about it. It's slow, it drags, it's so character-driven, and nothing's happening.
Those must be people that were expecting just a sports film then, because I've never heard of people saying that the film has a problem in that the characters are too well developed. That's not normally a complaint.
Well, I mean, if you watch other baseball movies or something, it's about them going through the playoffs. So there's a game, and then there's some dialogue, and then there's another game, and then there's dialogue, and it's all through the whole movie or something. Or it's a football season or something. It's very rarely just one quarter or one game, or something like that. It does have a theme throughout the whole film. This is just pays off at the end.
Yeah. I will say, you were saying that it's a risky thing to do, that the character doesn't necessarily win in the full term of that. The one thing that I really liked about the people that made the film, was it Dodgeball and Underdog Story? Like I'm not saying it's a good film. I'm just saying that when they made it, there's a point in it where right at the end, Ben Stiller's character hits Vince Vaughn in the leg, so he's the last one there, knocks him out. That it was supposed to then go to credits. It was supposed to go that they lost. That was going to be the end of it. And then the studios really put the pressure on them, saying, we're not putting this film out if you do it like that. So, yeah, they had to do it. So, yeah, it even, like, now, I don't know if it would happen. Because the studios are saying you have to win now. So back then, maybe they were a little bit more, like, we'll let this go, or it might just be because he got the moral victory. The moral victory is fine.
It was like, that was in that documentary I mentioned. That was a lot of people was like, how is this movie becoming so popular? He doesn't win. Like, how like you get so invested in this guy, you want him to like do the impossible, beat this monster, this huge guy, and like even in the 14th round, the second to last round, Rocky gets knocked down. And you have Mickey, his trainer, yelling at him, "Stay down! Stay down! Like, it's over. You've proved everything you need to prove." Pretty much saying that. Commentators say, what is keeping him up? Because he can't even hold his hands up to protect his face, and he's just taking punch after punch in the hip face and just still standing. And just, you know, Adrian's looking, just hangs her head like the guy she's loved is getting murdered. But, you know, that was his determination and moral victory. Yeah. But
I will say, even though I hate Stallone and I refuse to watch any more of the Rocky
films... Have you seen Rocky?
No.
Come on. You cannot criticize if you have not seen it. I have seen Slumdog Millionaire.
I have seen some of Rocky, and what I saw, I was bored by. So I decided not to watch the rest of it.
Yeah.
I cannot say it's a bad film, and I'm not saying it's a bad film. Not for me. And I'm going to say that the rest of the Rocky film, I know that he doesn't win all of his fights. There are some fights that he loses in the other film. I think the third film he loses, there's two other films where he loses a big.
If you're talking about an exhibition at the beginning of 4, he loses to Thunder Lips, but that's an exhibition.
I haven't seen the film, but I saw one of those things where it was like Apollo versus, and then it's like the main character, and it said if he won or lost, and there were some losers in there.
Well, he's in not... 2 he beats Apollo, the rematch, and then 3 it's Clubber Lang, Mr. T, that he beats, and 4 Ivan Drago he beats, and then 5 the travesty of 5. The Godfather 3 of the Rocky world. He is a street fight with Tommy Gunn, which he does win, and then Rocky Balboa. Sorry, spoilers galore. He does lose in that one.
Okay, good.
But he does. That is a split decision as well.
Oh, that's another close thing.
Very close. But he just wanted to prove that he was like 95 years old, so he just wanted to prove that he could still get in the ring and not have his hip break, I guess.
Yeah.
But that is a great film. Rocky Balboa is. I was so pleasantly surprised after the travesty of 5.
Right. Okay.
They did bring it back home and. A lot of homages to the original film, but
you kind of have to, I guess.
If you're tying it all up, because he will break a hip if he does another one, and his teeth will fall out, and it'll be bad.
I was gonna say, how's he managing in the Expendables?
I don't know. I guess guns are easier to shoot, I guess, than punches to throw. Yeah, you can pull a trigger. But
I've not seen either of the Expendables. I kind of want to see the second one.
I've heard they're fun.
Yeah, just because I've heard they're fun, and I'm almost expecting with Schwarzenegger and Stallone, all of their firing scenes is them up against a wall firing. I do know one of the scenes is Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis just in a car, just driving away in a car. Let's just have these two sitting. They can sit for a scene.
I will say this is probably, I don't know, I might have said this before on like 10 films, but this is probably top 3 films for me. Like
in a rotating basis.
I think this one does not rotate a whole lot. This one would stay 1 or 2 usually.
Okay.
Or 3. 1 or 2 or 3, maybe.
Maybe 4.
No, never 4. Never 4. No, it's always staying in the top 3. Eternal Sunshine I'd throw in there.
Okay.
That's always in the top 3. Love that film.
So basically they're the third film that is almost every other film in the world.
But yeah, there are some times where, like I watch it, and it's briefly after watching it, like right now, Rocky, yes, my favorite film, because I've just seen it again. And it works for me on so many levels. It's just a great testament to the human spirit, all that. schmaltzy crap.
Yeah.
And just kind of like part of the reason why I love the Lord of the Rings films is that their kind of overall theme is kind of that small people can do big things.
Right.
You know, if you really want to cut it down and boil it down to
Yeah.
the simplest thing,
Don't
simplest
underestimate
concept.
the little guy.
Yeah, because they can be of worth too.
Yeah.
And just like Rocky could.
Alright.
And he can solve the Cold War. in Rocky 4.
Yeah, it's just a non-American solving the Cold War for America.
That's right. So yeah, I would probably rate that for me like a -0.1.
Well,
You know,
yeah,
that
very
0.1.
up there.
Just as close to perfection for me as you can get.
Right.
But yeah, did you want to discuss or briefly, other than silence of the lambs?
Yes.
Do you hear them? Do you hear them, Paul? Do you hear them?
Yeah, I will say, Silence of the Lambs I got to see because of my A-level classes, and they played us that scene where she is talking to him in the cage, and he's going into her past. And they played it to us, and then said, okay, what's the first bit of sound in this film once he starts talking? What's the first non-dialogue thing that happens? And we were all going, okay, well, is it when the police come in at the end, the music comes up? He was like, no. Okay, is it when just before then you can kind of hear some of the orchestra coming in and doing stuff? It's like, no. Turns out when he's talking to her about the lambs and she's saying, you know, she's starting to explain how she went out and saw the lamb thing. When you get to that point, they put in a wind blowing and some slight grass rustling, and it's very subtle, and I love that.
Yeah.
I thought that film had quite a lot of those little things that just really made the scenes.
Oh yeah. Still remains to this day one of the most disturbing movies I've ever seen, in a good way. What else you got on there?
Well, I've also got, obviously Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Is very good,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I don't think I couldn't say it was my favorite.
No, that's
Even
weird
though
calling
it's
that movie good. You know, it's like, ooh, it's so good, so entertaining. No,
Yeah.
it's important to see. I would say an important movie for everyone to
definitely.
see. Yeah,
American Beauty again was a film that I really liked when I watched it. Upon rewatching,
it does not hold up as
necessarily
well. I don't
holding
think. And yeah, one of those just like Slumdog Millionaire that because you also texted me that one. I was like,
Yeah.
very good, but I don't think that was a strong year anyway for movies, if I recall.
don't think so. Again,
but,
I can't.
I enjoyed the story.
Yeah, and
But that was a Mendez, wasn't it?
Yes,
I
it
don't know,
was,
yeah,
yeah.
Mendez film. Or Alan Ball, I think, writer or something like that. I don't know. Correct me, people.
And the other one that I was contemplating was The King's Speech. But again, that was a film that I watched and thought, fantastic film, and I couldn't say it was my best just because, after I watched it, I didn't feel the need to watch it again. And I do think that with films that you just really love, you can, you might not necessarily seek it out, but when it's on, you're sitting down and watching this film. You're not.
I do have it on Blu-ray, which I have not. I think I watched it. I watched it in the theaters, and then I watched it immediately when I watched the Blu-ray. But I still have not seen it since, because a lot in the same way of Lincoln. Hopefully, it won't be this way with Lincoln when I get that.
Yeah.
But you have to be prepared for just 2 hours plus of just talking.
Right.
That's if you're expecting big things to happen, they don't really. It is a character drama. Just learning to talk without this impediment. That's what the whole movie is. And not to say it's not a great movie. I love the movie. But
and fantastic performances as well.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention?
Well, the only thing I was going to go into was a couple of the things of, as we said, Citizen Kane lost to How Green Was My Valley, and 1994, Forrest Gump won over Shawshank Redemption, which is my favourite film of all time, and Pulp Fiction. And I can kind of see why, if they were going for the America...
Tarantino's never going to get Best Picture because they're too violent. His films are too violent for those old men.
Yeah.
They'll throw him a supporting actor. They'll throw him a screenplay. But, yeah.
Yeah, I just Shawshank Redemption is considered, if you go, let's say, going with IMDb, it is always either number 1 or number 2 on the top 100 films list. It is considered one of the best films for like the last, I don't know, 50, 60
Yeah,
years.
this is a classic story of finding its audience after its time.
Yeah.
But...
And yet, Forrest Gump.
How do you... Yeah, well, come on. Forrest Gump is the crowd pleaser.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah.
Which also would explain 97 Titanic won the Oscar over The Full Monty, Good Will Hunting, and LA Confidential. I mean,
I never saw Full Monty, but I would pick the other two over Titanic.
Yeah, The Full Monty, I can understand why Titanic might have won, just because The Full Monty is a very British film. There's not a whole lot of parallels between what happened to the people in The Full Monty and what may have happened over here at the same time. Because The Full Monty, very briefly, is about some people that work in a factory, and the factory has laid them all off. And this was something that was happening all across the UK at the time. All of these people that were in steel mills and stuff like that, they were coal mines as well, they were just being laid off. There was nothing any of them could do. There were so many people on unemployment. And then these guys decide, because the women all like to go and see the Chippendales, that they're going to do the same sort of thing. And it's not necessarily about the fact that they're trying to be the dancers, it's about them, but obviously that's what's bringing them all together. And I can see, okay, maybe the Academy might not have wanted that as Best Picture of the Year. But yeah, Good Will Hunting, LA Confidential.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention my honorable mentions real quick. If that almost, few of them almost made it, but Rocky won out by a safe margin. But... And if you know anything about me, my favorite decade is the 70s for filmmaking. I just think everyone was at the top. A lot of my favorite actors were working in that period. Dustin Hoffman, Gene Hackman. Which brings me to Midnight Cowboy. And if we're going that way, which is one of my, I would say, top 25 favorites, Midnight Cowboy.
Right.
The Godfather. Like, how do you not love The Godfather unless you're Peter Griffin? Because it insists upon itself. But
I'm not going to go into The Godfather.
And The Godfather Part 2. Which I believe, correct me if I'm wrong out there, people, was the only sequel to win Best Picture up until another one I have on this list, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King.
Return of the King, yeah.
Yeah, I believe it was the only sequel to ever win up until... film.
Up until 2003. So that's an impressive.
That was, and the first one, obviously, up to that point. But One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I had that on the list. But...
Yeah, Deer Hunter, which, once again, kind of like Schindler's List, a great film, tough to rewatch.
Yeah.
It is so traumatic, and it just sucks the soul out of you. Well, and then you have the hour-and-a-half wedding movie at the beginning of it.
Another one of those films that the beginning and the end just don't quite go together.
They're two different films. It's just, but oh my god, and I'd say an easily top 10 Annie Hall.
Yeah,
I
really
love Annie Hall.
I need to go into
Woody Allen.
A Woody Allen thing because I have not seen much.
It is hilarious. It's heartbreaking. And Diane Keaton's incredible.
I always slightly worry about, because I keep saying that, I need to watch some Woody Allen film, and then I think, what if I watch it and it's of that problem of it doesn't quite click for me because I don't get I'm not connected with the environment at the time, or I don't quite.
It's Woody Allen before he started making movies about Europe, made movies about New York. And so New York is always a character in those films and if you don't know, Woody Allen makes a film every year. Despite, whether it's a success or not, which very rarely
he
are
makes
they.
Those films.
He does one a year. So there's tons of things to look at, but and he's worked with Diane Keaton tons of times.
Yes, I know. Another person that's quite famous for using the same people.
Yeah, but it's just, it's a relationship movie. It's these two people, kind of very small parallel to When Harry Met Sally, kind of a course of a period of years, these people.
Right.
And you get one of the great lines that I've gotten a lot of use out of it. I should be ashamed for this, but Woody Allen says, "Hey, don't knock masturbation. It's sex with someone I love." So feel free to use that one in your daily conversation, folks, because that's a good one.
I'm sure it fits everywhere.
Yeah, just real quick, then Gladiator is one of my all-time favorites. Yeah. Almost did that one. The modern times. Rain Man, going back to the 80s. Definitely a good movie. Definitely. Other than Wapner, definitely. And then I also wrote down Silence of the Lambs. I also wrote The Lambs and Braveheart. Braveheart's one of those that I have to watch when it's on TV, and I'm invested for 3 hours if I catch it at the beginning.
I know a couple of people that, upon hearing that, would probably wonder what on earth was wrong with you.
What in the hell is wrong with them that they don't love a great movie like Braveheart?
One of them is a history buff.
It's not a documentary, it's a film.
And doesn't like Mel Gibson.
Oh. Before he went crazy or just hated him
I think
before
just
then?
in general, not a Mel Gibson fan, and then the crazy didn't help. And I think those two together, being a history buff who is very...
I'm a history buff.
Yeah.
I can separate the two.
Buff.
Okay, I can separate the two. I'm a world history buff as well. I like European history.
Well, yeah, he very into if a film is going to be set in a, I guess for it's got like a pivotal historical era, to try and get most of their facts right. And based on what he's told me, there's not a lot in that film that is historically accurate in the slightest. So.
And my argument is this is like 1036 or whatever. Who the hell knows what's accurate? Who knows what was written in the books is actually what happened?
No, yeah,
right.
Obviously,
that's one person's version.
He is going based off of the
off of the common perception of what history. History's written by the victors.
Yeah,
not so.
And of course, well, the two of us could probably go into a very famous example of exactly something that was written a long time ago that people take as gospel, shall we say.
Oh, yeah. Let's not go there, But I will say, if you do want a perfectly accurate depiction of history, all you got to do is watch Mel Brooks' History of the World Part 1.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Word for word, line. That is exactly how everything went down.
Yeah. I wouldn't actually be surprised if that was more accurate than that.
Yeah, I just, you can never... I got to throw Mel Brooks in once every podcast.
Well, speaking of it, Mel Brooks, if you're listening, God, Part 2, really? It's taking you this long?
That was the joke. He said.
Yes. I know that was a joke, but still.
Yeah. Well, they show it at the end of 1. The scenes from that will be in Part 2. Hitler on Ice, I believe, is one of them.
And I think one of them turned into basically Spaceballs. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, they ripped off. What was the song that they did in History of the World turned into, I think, a song in Spaceballs or something. I don't know. I don't remember. Yeah. But I don't
something
know. But I digest.
So I mean, for this we looked over the old films. I've come to realize there's a huge amount of Oscar winners that I have not seen. Some of them, and they wouldn't be filmed.
And not to say the best picture winners that that's I hold all my stock in. Because sometimes, it's not your cup of tea, it's not my cup of tea, or not my bag for Austin Powers. But
how did that not win an Oscar?
But that was the category. Yeah, that was the thing we chose. Best picture winners, our favorites. So Twitter us or email us yours or on Facebook.
I think the only other film that I was going to say of note that I didn't mention. The 1943 winner, Casablanca. Oh, yeah. Just a very classic film, and it was watching that film that I realised that films back then did kind of have a sense of humour to them that wasn't necessarily apparent, mainly because of the line where the police chief is told by his higher up, you need to shut this place down now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so he starts getting everyone out, and Rick comes over and is like, what's going on? And so he just said, "Sir, I am shocked to find out that there is gambling going on in your establishment." At that second, someone comes up next to him and goes, "Here's your winnings, sir. Thank you." Puts it in his pocket. Everyone else comes. Yeah. Just the very quick pace thing. So it's a joke, but in a very serious scene. And I having seen that, and I was like, okay, now I get what the.
Well, now that you brought that up, sorry, I was ready to wrap up, but
that's right.
I do have to thank Casablanca for opening me up to older films, because that was really the first one, probably I'd say almost 15 years ago or so, that I gave a chance. I'm like, up until that point, maybe it was 12 or 13 years ago, but I was a young adult, and I'm like, I still loved, the film, and I will give this a try. I'm going to be bored to tears because it's from 1943. Nothing from then could be interesting.
Yeah. That's everyone that age thinks.
You do have to, as that book you read, I gave you the comedy film guides or whatever guide to film, whatever comedy film nerds. They talk about adjusting your perception to pace and things, and that does take a little bit in older films. Like if you're used to the pace of anything from the 80s on, you know, pretty much.
You gotta let it slow down.
Gotta let it slow down, gotta relax. And then once you do that and you get involved in the film, you're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And I loved that movie, obviously. And then started watching other films from the 40s. Wasn't afraid of black and white. And wasn't afraid of just slow moving stories. And okay, if I watched the Maltese Falcon because of that. I watched, President's Men and, or 12 Angry Men I watched. And,
I ended up watching a film that I thought I was going to walk out of because it was part of my film studies course. I ended up watching Metropolis, which is, I think, just over 2 hours. Yeah. I ended up being one of the few people who was sitting there just still into it at the end. And it made me realize, like, I don't think pacing matters too much to me.
Yeah.
It's because I know a lot of people are like, oh, God, this is taking forever. And it was actually a film that I almost left because the guy that was coming to put it on for us was 35 minutes late. And I poked my head out to be like, okay, I think we're going to go. Poked my head out and I saw him coming up the stairs. So I sat down and I'm so glad I did. Just because some of those old films are really good and so many people do put it off just because it's not in colour or it's not, they think it's going to be stuffy and all that. I mean, agreed, some of the studio films at the time, they were pumped out just to make the studio's money. Yeah. And the actors are paid a pittance, so it's...
Well, yeah, they were. That was the studio era where they all worked for that. They had contracts with that studio, and they had to pump out so many films a year.
And
you're contracted to make 4 films this year or whatever.
I would love people that say things about how actors are overpaid and all that blah blah blah. It's like someone got paid $25 million to appear in this film. It's just like oh, you think that's bad? Let's go back in time and see how much the biggest star of the age was paid. Maybe $50 a month to be in the film.
Yeah, but they definitely we're doing it other than for reasons other than money. But let's try to run through our Netflix sleepers. I think.
All right, sure.
And let the good people go.
All right. Well, I think you should go first.
All right then. I've been on a documentary kick just because. There hasn't been a whole lot of scripted stuff that's interested me in the theaters or on Netflix recently. And I'm going to go with a film called The Imposter. It's actually, I think, from a couple years ago, but although I think it just got released maybe last year. Right. Something like that. I don't know. But it's part documentary, then part like reenactments and things. Like, so there is a cast. Right. There's, and a couple things may be inaccurate. I don't know. I tried to do some research on it, but are you familiar with the story at all?
You're going to have to refresh my memory.
And I think it was 97, I think, this young boy goes missing in Texas. I think. Yeah, not really important. Right. But
he goes missing.
Goes missing, only to be discovered in Spain, I believe, 3 years later.
Okay.
And, well, they get this call, the family gets the call, like, oh, you're in Spain, you gotta come get him or whatever. Right. And not spoiling here because you very quickly, through the talking head interviews, find out this is a ruse.
Right.
This is someone pretending to be this kid. It's a 23-year-old man at this point. Pretending to be this 15-year-old now, or supposed to be this 15-year-old kid.
Okay.
And pulled it off. Been doing these things for years, and his excuse didn't have a family that showed him love. And if you don't learn that early, it's blah blah blah.
Right.
But so he's pulling this wool over their eyes, and amazingly is accepted by the family into their home and treat him as their son for many many months. And I'm not going to say any more than that because this movie went in a direction that I did not expect it to go. I'm like, I know this is still interesting. I know where it's going to go. And then I just jaw on floor. And just watch it. It's very fascinating. Not spoiling in here. I was not pleased with the resolution. It's a documentary, but I can't choose how life goes. Right, but I was still very, very interested in it. And it's definitely just took me to a place I did not think it was going at all. Right. So very interesting. Highly recommended.
I'll definitely have to watch that one this week then. Mm-hmm. Well, my one is... This film is not yet rated.
Yeah, but what's the movie?
I didn't bother writing it down.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah.
It's all right. Bad joke over. Continue.
And it is a film, as you might expect, about the ratings board, specifically the American ratings board, which technically the American rating board is a completely voluntary thing. The catch being, if you don't get a rating of under NC-17 by this rating board, there's only a handful of cinemas that even play NC-17s. Yeah. And if it's not rated, they don't play them at all. So somehow this voluntary board has become something that you need to submit your
you need to lower your fucks, delete them out, and to get your PG-13.
And this guy is basically trying to make a documentary about this. However, every single member of the board is a secret. No one, with the exception of the people very high up, no one really knows who these people are.
They're the Freemasons of film. Well, they're the Illuminati of film.
And it's fantastic because he goes out trying to find out who these people are. There's actually a private detective involved, which... So, I guess private investigator, I should say. Not affiliated with the police in any way. And it's fantastic. Some of the stuff that comes up, he actually, towards the end of the film... This isn't really a spoiler because it's just something that he ends up doing. He has to submit his film to the board, and so you get to see the outcome of that, what his conversations or lack thereof with some of the people in there, and it's a really good look at how the filmmakers feel about these board. It's mostly filmmakers that have had either an NC-17 or have had a very rough time with them. A couple of familiar faces, a couple of not familiar faces, depending on the sorts of films you watch. And just a really well done documentary. It's only, I think, an hour and a half long. And there was something else I was going to say about it, and of course I've forgotten what that is. So I'll leave you
Such
hanging.
a shame. We will always wonder.
Maybe I'll re-record something, but I doubt it.
No. Okay.
Alright.
Well, I think that's going to do it for us on this episode, sir.
So, I've been Paul.
And I've been Brian.
And we'll see you at some other time.
Bye, folks.
Bye.